I always thought I was good with numbers. As an accountant, it's kind of my thing. But staring at my bank statement that morning, something wasn't adding up. A $5,000 withdrawal I definitely hadn't made was staring back at me, mocking my carefully maintained spreadsheets and budgets. My name is Claire, and until that moment, I thought I had my life pretty well organized. Sure, living with my in-laws wasn't ideal, but Jake and I had agreed it would only be for a few months while they got back on their feet. That was 8 months ago. I double-checked the transaction details on my phone, my hands shaking slightly. The withdrawal had been made in person at our local branch yesterday afternoon, while I was stuck in a 4-hour budget meeting at work. Jake, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. No response. Of course not. He'd already left for work, probably passing his mother in the kitchen on his way out. Evelyn practically lived at our kitchen table these days, planning her social events and making endless phone calls. As if on cue, I heard her voice floating up the stairs. Claire, darling, could you bring me my reading glasses when you come down? I think I left them in the guest room. The guest room. Right. What used to be my home office before they moved in. I took a deep breath, grabbed her glasses, and headed downstairs, the bank statement crumpled in my other hand. There you are. Evelyn beamed at me, perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. I was just telling Richard about the most wonderful investment opportunity. You know how these things are, you have to act quickly when good fortune comes knocking. I froze halfway through handing her the glasses. Richard, my father-in-law, suddenly seemed very interested in his coffee cup. Investment opportunity? I repeated slowly, the crumpled paper in my hand suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Oh yes, dear. Jake mentioned you were both doing so well financially, and since we're family. She waved her hand dismissively. Don't worry your pretty head about it. Jake handled everything yesterday. The room started spinning slightly. Jake had given his parents access to our joint account, the one where I deposited my entire salary every month. The one we'd been using to save for our own house. Without even asking me. I need to make a phone call, I managed to say, turning around before Evelyn could see my face. As I climbed the stairs, I could hear her chattering away to Richard about some charity gala she was planning to host. In my house, no doubt. My hands weren't shaking anymore as I reached for my phone. They were perfectly steady as I dialed Jake's number, a strange calm settling over me. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was war. Jake never picked up his phone that morning. Instead, I got a text around noon. Sorry, honey, crazy day at work. We'll talk tonight. I was sitting in my car outside my favorite coffee shop, where I'd agreed to meet Mia for lunch. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. 8 unanswered calls, and all I got was a text. You look like you're about to commit murder, Mia said, tapping on my window. Come on, I got us a table in the back. Inside, over steaming cups of coffee, I told her everything. The mysterious withdrawal, Evelyn's casual mention of an investment opportunity, Jake's silence. Mia's expression darkened with each detail. So let me get this straight, she said, setting down her cup with a sharp click. Your mother-in-law is redecorating your guest bathroom with gold fixtures while using your money? I blinked. What? You haven't seen the delivery guys? They were at your house this morning when I drove by. I thought you knew. There was this huge truck from Luxury Bath and Beyond parked in your driveway. My coffee suddenly tasted like acid. $5,000. On bathroom fixtures. In my house. Without even asking. Claire, Mia leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. This isn't just about money anymore. They're literally renovating your house without your permission. I know, I whispered. But Jake needs to grow a spine, she cut in. Or you need to grow claws. My phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. Darling, the contractors need a decision about the marble countertops. I picked out a lovely Italian import, but it's slightly over budget. Jake said to check with you since you're so good with numbers. Mia read the message over my shoulder and let out a low whistle. Slightly over budget? You mean over the budget of your stolen money? I started typing a response, then stopped. Deleted. Started again. How do you tell someone they've crossed a line when they don't even acknowledge the existence of boundaries? You know what the worst part is? I said, putting my phone away. Last week, Evelyn told me I should be grateful they moved in. Said Jake was finally becoming the man she raised him to be now that they're around more. And what kind of man is that? Mia asked. One who apparently doesn't need to consult his wife about anything. I stood up, suddenly feeling restless. I need to get back to work. But first, I'm stopping by the bank to open a new account. One without Jake's name on it. Mia smiled. Now that's the Claire I know. Just remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. As I drove back to work, I couldn't stop thinking about those words. Getting free. Maybe it was time to show the Addisons exactly what kind of woman their son had married. The truth hit me like a slap in the face when I was organizing our tax documents. Jake hadn't just given his parents access to our joint account, he'd been systematically transferring money to them for months. Small amounts at first, then larger sums, all carefully labeled as business expenses or household maintenance. I was still staring at the spreadsheet when Jake came home that evening. The house smelled of his mother's signature pot roast, and I could hear her laughing with Richard in the dining room. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching my life through someone else's eyes. Hey, you missed dinner, Jake said, loosening his tie. Mom saved you a plate. $27,000, I interrupted, my voice surprisingly steady. That's how much you've given them since January. The color drained from his face. Claire, I can explain. Please do. I turned the laptop toward him. Explain why you've been lying to me for months. Explain why your parents are renovating our bathroom while we can barely afford our mortgage payments. They needed help, he said, running his hands through his hair. Dad's investments went bad and Mom. And what about us? My voice cracked. What about our plans? The house we were saving for. They're my parents, Claire. And I'm your wife. The words exploded out of me. Or am I just your personal ATM? Heavy footsteps in the hallway made us both freeze. Richard appeared in the doorway, Evelyn hovering behind him. Is everything all right? Richard asked, though his eyes were fixed on Jake. Son, perhaps we should discuss. There's nothing to discuss, I cut in, standing up. This is between me and my husband. Evelyn stepped forward, her perfectly manicured hands clasped together. Claire, darling, you're being dramatic. Family helps family. Surely you understand. Family doesn't steal, I said. Family doesn't lie. We never stole anything, she replied, her voice sharp. Jake offered to help. He knows his responsibilities to this family. This family? I laughed, the sound hollow. You mean the family that's been bleeding us dry while planning charity galas in my house? Jake reached for my arm. Claire, please. I jerked away from him, suddenly seeing everything with crystal clarity. The way they'd slowly taken over our home, our finances, our lives. The way Jake had let them. I'm staying at Mia's tonight, I said, grabbing my keys. And when I come back, I expect some real answers about where my money went. All of it. As I walked out, I heard Evelyn's voice. Jake, sweetheart, you can't let her speak to us this way. We're your parents. I slammed the door behind me, my hands steady as I started the car. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Mia's guest room became my sanctuary for 3 days. Jake called constantly, but I let his messages pile up, each one more desperate than the last. It wasn't until I checked our online banking that I finally broke my silence. He's still transferring money, I told Mia, my laptop screen glowing in her dim kitchen. Even after everything, he just moved another $2,000 to their account yesterday. Mia set down her wine glass. Have you talked to a lawyer yet? The word lawyer made my stomach clench. I keep thinking about our wedding day. Jake promised to always put us first. Now I wonder if he even remembers making that promise. My phone buzzed, another text from Jake. Please come home. We need to talk about this like adults. Like adults. Mia read over my shoulder, snorting. You mean like how he's been acting like a teenager with his mom's credit card? I started typing a response when an email notification popped up. From our mortgage company. My hands started shaking as I opened it. Oh God, I whispered. We're 3 months behind on our mortgage payments. Mia leaned in closer. But you've been making the payments every month. I have. My voice sounded strange, distant. But apparently Jake's been canceling them and redirecting the money. There's a notice of default. A knock at Mia's front door made us both jump. Through the window, I saw Jake's car parked outside. I'll get rid of him. Mia started to stand, but I stopped her. No, I said, suddenly calm. I need to handle this. Jake looked terrible when I opened the door, unshaven, shirt wrinkled. Claire, please. Mom's beside herself. Dad's talking about moving out. The mortgage, Jake? My voice was barely a whisper. You've been stealing our mortgage payments? He flinched. Dad's investment group is about to turn things around. Once they secure this next deal. There is no deal, is there? The realization hit me like a wave. Your father's broke, and you're destroying our life to maintain their lifestyle. Their family, he pleaded. We can't just abandon them. But you can abandon our future? I stepped back inside. I'm filing for separation, Jake. I suggest you talk to your parents about finding somewhere else to live. Claire, wait. I closed the door, my heart pounding but my mind clear. Through the window, I watched him stand there for a long moment before finally walking away. You okay? Mia asked softly. I nodded, pulling out my phone to search for divorce lawyers. I will be. For the first time in months, I actually will be. After a week at Mia's, I returned home with divorce papers and a plan. What I didn't expect was to find Evelyn hosting a garden party in my backyard, complete with catering staff and string lights strung through my apple trees. Claire. She waved as if nothing had happened. You're just in time. The caterers need approval for the menu for next weekend's charity gala. I stood frozen on my own back porch, watching strangers arrange flowers on tables I'd never seen before. What charity gala? The one we're hosting here, of course. Evelyn adjusted a centerpiece. Jake said you'd be fine with it. We've already sent out the invitations. The divorce papers felt heavy in my bag. Where's Jake? Working late again, poor dear. He's been so stressed lately. She lowered her voice. Though I suppose that's partly your fault, running off like a teenager having a tantrum. Something inside me snapped. Everyone needs to leave. Now, don't be ridiculous. Get out. My voice carried across the yard, making the catering staff pause. All of you. This event is canceled. Evelyn's face hardened. I have 50 guests coming next weekend. Important people. You can't just. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and dialed the catering company's number from their truck side panel. Hi, I'm Claire Addison, the homeowner. I'm canceling all services for next weekend's event. No, Mrs. Evelyn Addison is not authorized to make arrangements for my property. Claire. Richard appeared from inside, his face red. You're embarrassing your mother. She's not my mother. I turned to the stunned staff. Please pack up and leave. Now. As they hurriedly gathered their things, Evelyn grabbed my arm. You ungrateful little. Let go, I said quietly, or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. She released me like I'd burned her. Jake will hear about this. Good. I pulled the divorce papers from my bag. He can add it to the list of things we need to discuss. Richard stepped forward, finally looking uncertain. Now, Claire, let's not be hasty. You have until tomorrow to find somewhere else to stay. I walked into my house, and started up the stairs. I suggest you start packing. This isn't over. Evelyn called after me. You're right, I said, not turning around. It's just beginning. In my bedroom, I could hear them arguing downstairs, could hear the catering trucks pulling away. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt powerful. My phone buzzed, Jake calling again. This time, I answered. We need to talk, I said before he could speak. And this time, I'm doing the talking. Jake came home late that night, but he wasn't alone. The entire Addison family clan filled my dining room, aunts, uncles, cousins I'd never met. Evelyn sat at the head of my table like a queen holding court. Claire, Jake said, his voice strained. Mom thought we should have a family meeting. Family meeting? I looked around at the strangers in my house. Or an intervention? Evelyn smiled, that practiced, perfect smile that never reached her eyes. We're all concerned about your recent behavior, dear. The canceled charity gala, the threats, the divorce papers, which you had no right to tell anyone about, I cut in, looking at Jake. His cousin Sarah, whom I'd never met, reached for my hand. We just want to help. Family stays together. I pulled away. You don't even know me. But we know Jake, Richard said. And this isn't like him. The missed payments, the stress, it all started when you began pushing back against family obligations. My laugh sounded hollow even to my own ears. Family obligations? Is that what we're calling financial abuse now? Nobody's abusing anyone, Jake insisted. Mom and Dad needed help. So you stole from our mortgage payments? The room went quiet. Did you tell them that part, Jake? Did you tell your whole family how you've been secretly funneling money to your parents while our house is about to go into foreclosure? Evelyn's smile faltered. Jake assured us you were both doing very well financially. We were, I said. Until you moved in. Now, Claire, Richard started, but I'd had enough. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Would everyone like to see exactly how well we're doing? Here's our mortgage statement. Here's Jake's secret transfers. Here's the credit card debt he's been hiding. That's enough. Jake slammed his hand on the table. No, it's not enough. I turned to the shocked faces around the table. You all want to talk about family? Fine. Let's talk about how your perfect Jake and his wonderful parents have nearly bankrupted us. Let's talk about. The slap caught me off guard. Evelyn stood there, hand still raised, her face twisted with rage. You ungrateful little witch. After everything we've done for you. The room erupted in chaos. Jake's relatives started talking all at once, some defending Evelyn, others looking horrified. Through the noise, I locked eyes with Jake, waiting for him to say something, do something. He looked away. Get out, I whispered, then louder. All of you, get out. Claire, Jake reached for me. Don't. I stepped back, my cheek still stinging. Just don't. As I walked upstairs, I could hear Evelyn organizing the family, making plans, taking control. Again. But this time, something was different. This time, I was done playing nice. I spent the night gathering documents, bank statements, mortgage papers, credit card bills. By morning, I had a clear picture of exactly how much damage the Addisons had done. When Jake finally came to our bedroom, I was ready. We need to talk, he said, hovering in the doorway. About how you've been lying to everyone? I spread the papers across our bed. Your parents aren't just broke, are they? They're in debt. Serious debt. His face crumpled. Claire, please. How bad is it, Jake? Because these credit card statements show you've been paying for everything. Their cars, their vacations, even their country club membership. They'll pay it back, he insisted. Dad's investment. There is no investment. I threw a handful of bounce check notices at him. Your father's been writing bad checks for months. And you've been covering for him by draining our accounts. Jake slumped against the wall. You don't understand. Mom and Dad gave me everything growing up. I owe them. You owe me. My voice cracked. I'm your wife. We built this life together, and you threw it all away for what? To maintain your mother's delusions. Their family. And what am I? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Downstairs, I could hear Evelyn's voice, probably planning another party we couldn't afford. I can't choose, Jake whispered. You already did. I pulled out one final document, my separate bank account statement. I've moved my salary to a new account. I'm not funding their fantasy life anymore. You can't do that. Watch me. I stood up, suddenly feeling lighter. I've also called a realtor. The house goes on the market next week. Mom will never. Your mother has no say in this. Neither do you anymore. I handed him the divorce papers. I've already signed my part. Jake stared at the papers, his hands shaking. If you do this, if you make me choose. I'm not making you choose, Jake. I'm choosing myself. A commotion downstairs made us both turn. Evelyn appeared in the doorway, her face red with anger. What's this about selling the house? She demanded. Jake, tell her she can't. The house is in my name, I cut in. I bought it before we were married. You all seem to have forgotten that. But we're family. Evelyn's voice rose hysterically. No, I said quietly. We're not. We never were. I walked past them both, down the stairs, and out the front door. Behind me, I could hear Evelyn's shrill voice, Jake's protests, but they sounded distant, unimportant. In my car, I took a deep breath and started the engine. It wasn't the revenge I'd originally wanted, but something better, freedom. 6 months later, I stood in my newly renovated kitchen, admiring the simple white cabinets that had replaced Evelyn's gaudy gold fixtures. The house had sold quickly, and my new townhouse felt like a fresh start. No more echoing rooms filled with other people's expectations. My phone buzzed, a text from Jake's cousin Sarah. You should know, Mom and Dad finally moved in with Evelyn and Richard. Jake's living in their pool house. I smiled, imagining Evelyn's perfect world crumbling under the weight of reality. For adults living off Jake's salary, pretending everything was fine. Karma had its own way of settling scores. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Evelyn standing there, looking smaller somehow. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by department store basics. Claire, she said softly. May I come in? Part of me wanted to slam the door, but curiosity won out. I stepped aside. Nice place, she said, glancing around. Very. You. What do you want, Evelyn? She twisted her hands together, a nervous gesture I'd never seen before. Jake's getting counseling. For financial codependency. He wanted me to give you this. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check, not for everything they'd taken, but a start. It was supposed to be perfect, Evelyn whispered. My perfect son, his perfect life. I thought if I could just control everything. She trailed off, looking lost. That's the problem, I said. You can't control everything. Or everyone. I know that now. She reached for her purse. I should go. At the door, she turned back. I'm sorry, Claire. Not just for the money. For everything. I nodded, not quite ready to forgive, but understanding something I hadn't before. Evelyn's perfect world had been built on fear of losing control, losing status, losing her son's devotion. After she left, I sat in my quiet kitchen, looking at the check. 6 months ago, I'd wanted revenge, wanted to make them all hurt like I had. Now, watching their carefully constructed facade crumble under its own weight felt less like victory and more like liberation. My phone buzzed again. Mia, drinks tonight? That cute bartender's asking about you again. I smiled, thinking about new beginnings and unexpected paths. The check in my hand represented more than money. It was acknowledgement, accountability, maybe even a hint of redemption. But I didn't need it anymore. I took a photo of the check and sent it to Jake with a simple message. Use this for your therapy. I'm good on my own. Then I texted Mia back. Tell the bartender I'll be there at 8. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free.